Beyond the Front Door, a journey to family leadership. Thank y'all for joining us today, and as of this morning, we had about 60 people registered for the webinar, which is a great turnout. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website at www.txsystemofcare.org within the next couple of weeks. If you would like to join us on Twitter, for those of you who Twitter, please tweet us and follow us on Twitter using the hashtag FamilyVoice. If you have any questions throughout today's webinar, please post those questions for the speakers in the chat pod and feel free to have a discussion in the chat box. We will respond either in the chat dialogue or we will prompt the speakers to reply, and then at the end of today's webinar, we will have a chat session. Don't forget to please complete the post survey at the end of today's webinar. It will pop up when you close your browser, and we will also have a link in case you have your pop-up blocker up. Don't forget to complete the survey, especially if you are needing the CEU certificate. Before we begin today's webinar, let's start out with a poll question. And if you don't mind, please participating in the poll question, and the poll will pop up here in just a minute. And the poll question is, what role do you play in your community's efforts for children? And we're opening it up so everyone can take it. So please take a minute to complete the poll. So what role do you play in your community's efforts for children's services? We'll give everyone a couple minutes to complete the poll. And it looks like a lot of people are putting other, with family member coming up as a close second. Alrighty. So we'll go ahead and close the poll, but it looks like a lot of people are other, with family member coming in as a close second. And now I would like to turn it over to Barbara Granger, who will be facilitating today's webinar.
Thanks, Robert. One of the most important features of System of Care is our building a group of family leaders that can infuse their opinions and in their decision making for policies. But yet it's one of the most difficult things to sustain and to support. So today we want to spend a little time on just what it's like to identify a family leader and some strategies that you can use to help grow that family voice within your community. So today we're going to hear from several family members about their journey to leadership and how community and state leaders were able to identify and recognize their potential. So one of the things that, a phrase that we hear within System of Care is nothing about us without us. Yet sometimes that seems to be a very difficult task. Systems get very caught up in making those decisions and forgetting to ask family members how they feel about not only their planning, but those policy making and decision and evaluation. So before we hear from the families, I want to take a second poll, and that would be, how would you rate your community in utilizing families? There's a brief description that I won't take time to read, so please take time to read that. But you're going to rank it as non-existent, somewhat, moderately, substantially, extensively, or you don't know. So please take the time now to answer that poll, and you'll be able to read the results on your screen. So it looks like that most people feel like that their communities have a moderate level of utilizing families within their community. So we definitely have some room to grow. And so hopefully after today, you'll be able to have some strategies that you can look at and start implementing to help families to gain more of their family voice and to share it with others. So today, our first family member is Mary Escobar. So let's hear from her now.
Hi, I'm Mary. I have 4 kids, and one of my sons suffers from autism and insomnia. I started realizing there was something wrong with my son in about kindergarten. He was different from my other kids. Things were happening in the house and at school that didn't happen with my other children. And he was a middle child, so I saw these things pretty quickly. Like, I noticed that something was wrong. So I started, I asked the school for help, but they were limited into the help that they could give me because of his age. He was still kind of young for certain tests. So I could seek outside help, which I did. I went to doctors, therapists, mental health facilities, anything I could do trying to get help for my son. And at about the end of first grade, beginning of second grade, I started having 504s and art meetings for my son at school, and started getting testing done, and I put him in after-school programs, trying to do everything I could. And at about the end of second grade, we were in a program called Communities in Schools. And at Communities in Schools is where I found out about Children's Partnership. And I was really at my wit's end. I was very emotional. It was hard for me to deal with the people at the school because I was just upset all the time. And so through Children's CIS, Communities in Schools, I found out about Children's Partnership, and that's how I began my journey with Children's Partnership. And it's been a long one, and I'm super excited because I've come a long way. So,
Okay. And my name is Dina Wedge. I'm the parent liaison with Travis County Health and Human Services with the Children's Partnership. And I am the parent liaison that was able and still working with Mary. And one of the things that I found that I saw in Mary was she had confidence, and we built right away with the trust and building that relationship together. Yes, she was angry. Yes, she was tired. But in that, she continued to be a strong advocate for her son and other family. And that's something that every parent we look for, and I look for, is to continue to be able to strive for his strength. And what is going to be different with our program is being, she was angry, and so with that anger, we look at trying to redirect things, redirect that emotion, and move that to a positive. And Mary was eager all the time, but she was frustrated, and with that, we took that frustration and redirected it. We empowered her. We helped her with the education piece. When she was tired with the school, we took that as something that we moved and helped with that education. Instead of her giving up, she was willing to continue on. That, with our program, instead of giving up, she decided to continue with our communication. It's a process, and getting her with the engagement and being a part of something, and not just her family. And we looked at that with all of our families in that participation piece. Getting their involvement, helping their collaboration with all the systems. It's easy to look at what isn't going well. What's hard to look at is what is going well. And so Mary always had lots of strength, and she continues to have strength. So when she found the partnership, she always looks at, she started to look at what she found in herself and what we saw in her and other families.
So the way that you prepare a family to use their, their voice and to advocate to both systems and other families, physically preparing them for public speaking, helping them with their story and identifying the pieces of the story that will be most helpful for entities and other families in the public and the private sector. And then mentally, while you're working with the family, preparing them and empowering them, helping them manage, like Nina said, through difficult situations and barriers and turning that into a positive. I think it's really important to help families learn the skills that they need after they close to our services and they're on their own. And part of empowering them is teaching them the skills that they need to overcome future barriers, because it's not just a year process in our services, it's a lifetime process and journey. So we need to make sure that they feel comfortable in their situation and their skin and their shoes, and then help them develop a really good story, an elevator speech at times, to help even politicians with the mental health advocacy piece. So I think that's how we help a family develop their family story and empower them to share their family voice and story to others at the local level and hopefully even maybe the national level one day.
And I'm Sonia Hartman. I am the System of Care Manager at Travis County Health and Human Services and the Children's Partnership. And our organization is a mental health collaborative that works with children and families. And we've worked with Mary and Vina and Monica are the parent liaisons that also work with the families that agree to participate and partner with us. And some of the things that we do are strategies as an agency to empower families to use their family voice, is that we utilize our parent liaisons because they're the ones that are connecting with those families in the community. They are using their lived experiences to work with families to identify their own and what it is that they have to offer to other people in the community. We also utilize the care coordinators to identify families as well. So when we are seeking family members to train with us, because we do training within our own agency, and to partner with us in that training process, we heavily depend upon the parent liaisons to identify those family members that they work with and who have those characteristics that they both just built upon, that strength, that willingness to tell their story, not only to community agencies, but also to other professionals, other care coordinators, other family members that may be attending those trainings, and to share that. We also work with families prior to becoming partners with us in the training process of identifying other avenues they may be willing to advocate at. So we offer them opportunities to sit on our board. We offer them opportunities to sit at our local CRCG, which is the gatekeeper for the Children's Partnership, in order to access those services. We have had family members attend trainings with us out of the state at the system of care level, and we support them in whatever it is that we offer to families. So we try to pass on information in regards to additional trainings in the community, in regards to leadership or building that family voice. We've talked about creating a training or an informational session for families to learn more about what's going on, not only in Travis County, but also at the state level, and how their voice can be heard across, and who it is that they need to speak with, or what other organizations are out there that they could join as family members in order to do that. We also provide training opportunities to our staff members, not only the parent liaisons and the care coordinators, but also to all the members under the system of care initiatives within Travis County, so that they're informed of what's going on. Because system of care is not just for the Children's Partnership in regards to Travis County Health and Human Services, but it's for that entire agency in order for it to touch the lives of all the families that we come in contact with. So we do trainings, we do celebrations with our families twice a year so they can come together and see other family members so that they know that they're not in this alone and that we're there to support them and help them. We also offer family members opportunity to participate in speaking opportunities at the Capitol. We've had families participate in News 8 had a broadcast on family connections, and a couple of our graduated families participated in that, and we shadowed with them, we supported them. I think the big thing about how you keep the families involved even after graduation is knowing that we're there to continue to support them through this journey, and that even though we're no longer working with that particular family, if they call and they have a question, or if they need some direction or guidance, or if they just wish to let us know what they're doing, and can we come support them if they're speaking somewhere, or if they're providing advocacy to another family member and just have some clarification questions or want to know where they can get that information at, is that we return those calls and we keep that open line of communication with them and let them know that, you know, if we're available or if somebody's available to go with them or to be there just in the audience showing support for them, then that's how we keep them involved, to let them know that their involvement with us does not end the day that their child graduates out of our program, but that we're just a phone call away. And I think families need to know that that support is there, that we're there for more than just working with them during that time period. Because like Monica said, it's a lifelong journey. It's a process that they will continue to educate themselves. They will continue to stand up and stand out and speak out on stigma, on the things that affect their family and maybe that affect society as a whole, depending on where it is that they wish to use their voice. In preparation for families to do that, in order for them, as Monica mentioned earlier, to be willing to do that public speaking and to be willing to step out and stand up, is that they have to be prepared. So what we do within our agency is we role model with our families. We may have meetings with them to go over their family story, to give them ideas on how to bullet point certain areas that they wish to highlight, and what they wish to get across, and then discuss the who it is that they're speaking to, so they make sure that they bring across the message that they wish to bring across. We also provide continued parent support through our family celebrations. All our parent liaisons, as well as other members of our system of care community in Travis County and Health and Human Services, are on different organizations that work in regards to the family voice, in regards to letting families be heard and knowing that they're not alone out there, and that there's other family members that their story will touch, even though it may not be the same path that they're taking or the same journey that they've taken. But the message that they're bringing across is that there's hope and that there's resiliency and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And some families need to hear that, and they don't need to hear it from people who may be in administrative roles, but from people who have had that lived experience, and the importance of that family voice is that, so that they can connect with those other family members. An advice that I would give to other agencies who are out there, or other communities that are seeking to build their family voice, is to link up with organizations that may already have that component. So linking with NAMI, linking with Texas Family Voice Network, linking with Federation of Families. But you want to get out there and communicate and talk to other organizations where that family voice is already being represented, and get ideas and guidance on how to incorporate that within your organization. But one of the things that is utmost, and I believe has to be instilled within any organization or any system of care community, is that you have to have a belief in the values of system of care. You have to have a belief in the families that you work with, and that you really do wish to partner with them and meet them where they're at, and really focus on nothing without them being there and present. And that means having them there in board meetings, having their voice being heard, having them help make decisions that will impact not only your organization, but may impact families that are in the future and now. But believing in that community-based and believing in providing services that are culturally and linguistically competent, which are the values of system of care, and having that youth voice in there as well. But there has to be a true partnership, and it's not just a partnership from people that are on the ground working with the families, but it has to go all the way up and throughout that community and throughout that organization. Because families, I do believe, need to know that we are there for them where they're at. And where they're at doesn't mean at their house or meeting them at the grocery store, or meeting them at the McDonald's or anything like that. It's where they're at and accepting them for who they are and what they've gone through, and recognizing that we are partners. And by being a partner, it's not always a 50-50. Sometimes it's a 20-80, sometimes it's a 30-70, but either way it goes, we're there for them in the end, because that's what a true partnership is. And I believe that under the values of system of care and the principles of wraparound, if you're utilizing that process, families will see things differently, or see us working with them differently, because it is a new way of working with families and really believing and instilling hope in the families that we work with. And I think the parent liaisons are a vital part to any organization, or someone with that lived experience, to work and partner with the families, whether they're certified family partners or parent partners, whatever your organization wishes to call or title that they get, but that they have to be involved in the way that we work with families. And under that direction and guidance, I don't think you can have system of care wrap around or anything like that without a family voice being represented, and that the families believe that that family voice is there and that lived experience is there. So there is a true connection with the families that come before you and are asking for help, because that's a big step in itself.
After I contacted Children's Partnership, I was kind of scared. I didn't know how I was going to do the time. I felt like it was going to be very time consuming, and I worked a lot. How was I going to have the time to, do these things and make these appointments or whatever? And I said, well, I have to do whatever it is I have to do, because it's for my son to succeed. So I made the appointment. I started meeting with my parent liaison, and it was hard at first. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I would meet my parent liaison at work on my break. That was 30 minutes. And sometimes we'd go over, but it was okay. And then after that, we just met more and more. We made appointments. It got to the point where I was so comfortable with my parent liaison that if I had an appointment and my parent liaison maybe had an emergency with another family member, I couldn't make it. I didn't want to. I canceled my appointment. I rescheduled my appointment, and I wouldn't tell my parent liaison. I would make up an excuse why I canceled that appointment or whatever, because I didn't want to go alone. I wanted my parent liaison to be there with me for that extra support. I would go into doctor's appointments, and they'd ask me, do you have any questions? Is there anything you need to ask us or anything you want us to do? And I'd just say no. And in my mind, there were things I wanted to ask. There were things I wanted done. I didn't know how to speak my voice or use my voice. And when I started with Children's Partnership, my parent liaison gave me that extra push I needed. They were the strength that I was missing. They were like, no, you can do these things. We're going to help you. We're going to go with you. You tell me what you need, and I'll help you get it as much as I can. And it was awesome. It got to the point where when I saw my parent liaison doing these things, I said, why am I not doing this for myself? This is crazy. I can do all these things that she's doing for me on my own. And my real eye-opener was that I had a friend who was going through some things with her child also. So I wanted to do something to help her, because I could see her struggle and how she felt, and I had been there. I knew what that felt like. And so to help her, I did some things that, Vina did for me. And I went out into the community with her, and I told her, look, this is where you go to help for this. Talk to your school, set up meetings, have an art. Let them know that you're going to be involved in your child's life, because at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to be involved, to find out what's going on. How can you take care of this? How can you help your child succeed and to move forward? That's your responsibility as a parent. And you can help. People are there to help you, but you have to get out there and you have to look for it. You have to want to help yourself. So when I started to help my friend, I realized I was doing it. I was helping someone else. I was the parent liaison. It was funny. It was weird. But when I came back to tell Dina, I was like, oh my God, I did it. I'm a parent liaison. Like, it was funny for us, but it was true. And it made me feel so accomplished. Like I had really done something. And more than anything else, I had helped a parent. And more than that, I had helped a child. So it just made me want to do more. And after that, Vina would call me and be like, oh, let's set up a meeting. I was like, okay, we set up the meeting. She was like, well, do you need any appointments, anything that, And I was like, we get to the meeting and I say, you know what, Vina, I went to the appointment. This is what happened and this is what's going on. And she was like, this is it. You're graduating. Like, you don't need me. And I was like, no, I don't. And it felt great. I felt like I was losing a friend, but because you come so far with people and you're sharing your life with them. So it's more than just, I like the term parent liaison, but I hate it because so many times I want to call her my friend, because she is my friend at the end of the day. I mean, she's helped me come to a place in my life that has brought great things for me and my children. We've come a long way, a very long way. And I mean, to the extent where I am in my 30s and I don't drive because I'm scared to drive. She helped me get into classes, to take driving classes, to get my driver's license. I mean, things that people do on an everyday basis that somebody might take for granted, like that was a big deal for me. And it's just those little things like that that have made the program so enriching to me. I've gained so much from this program, and I feel great about myself. I'm proud of myself, and a lot of times Vina's like, I'm so proud of you. And I told her, I'm proud of you. I was a mess, and you got all this together. And so I'm proud of that, and I love this program. And in the end, I was like, I don't know, I know I'm going to be great. I'm going to be fine because I have all the skills that I need now. But I remember being at the point where, what am I going to do without the program? Like, it's going to end one day. What am I going to do without them? But now that it's ending, it was successful because I'm like, I'm great. I'm moving forward, and I'm ready, and I want to help somebody else.
And you're speaking. You're ready.
And
Thanks, Mary and Children's Partnership, for your efforts in helping build family leaders within your organization and your community. We have another polling question for you guys. So the polling question number 3 is, identify the top barrier to incorporating families in your community efforts. So the choices are lack of identification of committed families, meeting time, family stipend for lost work time, child care, transportation, lack of understanding of the importance of shared leadership with families, or families not knowing where to be the best help. Where do I start? So go ahead and answer that for me, please, and then you can see the results on your screen. Okay, so the results look like it is transportation, and almost neck and neck is lack of understanding of the importance of family leadership. So the shared leadership. So again, we have some work to do, and hopefully you'll be thinking about how you will help families and use them in that shared leadership role and get them to the meetings that you need them to get to. So our next is Candice Lheure, and she's going to share with us some of her journey toward leadership, especially after making a phone call to Sherry Hammock and following up through that.
Thanks, Barbara. So my name is Candice, and I have been on a journey of advocacy for several years. I've been on a journey of advocacy for a family member for over 14 years. And when I first hit the door of really understanding leadership role in advocacy, beginning to, was when I made a phone call to Sherry Hammock at the Department of our Health and Human Services Commission. And that certainly wasn't the first phone call I made. I was at a point where my family member had needed services multiple times. We had reached out, gone through different service systems trying to help them with severe mental health needs. And I was furious. I was a parent that understood some of the ethical problems in the care that they were receiving, because I was also a nurse. But I was just trying so hard to figure out how the system was actually hurting my family, and I knew that there had to be a better way. I knew that there had to be someone that, I didn't know if it was an ombudsman or an official person, but I kept making phone calls, and I never quit until I finally got to a leader at the state level that could hear me, and that was Sherry Hammock.
Well, and so when I got the call from Candice, and what I heard and saw was, here's a woman who was very tenacious. She had, as she said, she had called a lot of people, and she found me through her search on the internet and with affiliated organizations that I belong to. But I heard that tenacity in her voice.
Yeah, and that was a constant drive in me that I was not going to give up because it was my family member. Even though I did have some clinical background, my drive was that because it was my family and I had to help them and figure this out. And not only for them, but for the other children in the state.
And I heard that passion come through, that Candice was very passionate. She was emotional and very dogmatic and laying out, here's the issues that I've found so far, or that I've run across, with trying to access services and trying to get the treatment that's necessary for my family member.
I think that's probably a kind word, because there's a lot of anger, a lot of beyond frustration, and it's really a testament to Sherry that she saw in that anger and almost rage that I had, and that was passion. And there can be a lot of leadership skills that come to you that may appear to be something difficult when it's actually a strength.
But in that conversation, though, even though obviously there was frustration, I heard an open-mindedness too. I mean, there was some listening back and forth, because she was reflecting back what she heard. So she was truly trying to glean suggestions, or I'd asked, have you talked to this person, or have you tried this? What community do you live in? And trying to look at resources. So again, I heard her actually listen and be open to suggestions as well.
And that's hard. I had so many doors shut in my face. I had approached so many other administrators at hospitals or community members, various places I went to trying to find help, not only for my
child, but trying to fix some things that I saw needed to be fixed in the system. And I started to do some research on my own, and then when I would bring these ideas, people would shut the door in my face because they didn't, or not want to talk to me because they didn't have the answer. And I think it was open-minded of Sherry to be willing to listen to me and acknowledging that you're right, these are things that need to be fixed, and let's figure out how we can do that together.
And it is, I mean, I think it's listening. I think a lot of us, when we're venting and having frustrations, is the thing that's needed. But I also saw in Candice another skill, and that was resourcefulness. That along with obviously the expert in her family and what was going on, is that she was able to unearth and find different people and resources. And she, so when I would ask the questions, have you talked to this agency or this organization? It was yes, and this is, so I saw that resourcefulness in talking to her.
Yeah, I think it's very important, and it's very hard to do, and it's something I had to tell myself that because people tend to give you some of the resources you've already tried, and it can be very frustrating and defeating, especially if everything that they give you is something you've already tried. But being open-minded and not getting frustrated with that person, because one of the things that I realized is that there were, the system was also struggling to figure these things out, and not necessarily getting mad at the person that I was speaking to, but trying to figure it out together.
And I would say the same thing, not getting, frustrated back because of that, knowing that their struggles, their struggles from a system or a provider in as well. The last thing that I'd have to point to is that I felt like Candice was very articulate, that she had something to say and something worth hearing. And so in listening for that, I think what really came out of that was what we established was a relationship. She now had my number. And one of the things that I said to her was, I can't promise you that things are going to be fixed or right tomorrow or next week or the next month, but I can promise you that I'll be around to assist. And I didn't become Candice's service coordinator or her case manager. I was just an additional resource, actually from a state level, because she lived in a community, so it was really putting her in touch with community resources and all. So we emailed back and forth, and she had called me back as well, kind of letting me know how things were going, and we established a two-way communication. As she said a minute ago, really listening to each other and empathizing, because I'd say, I know we're a little frustrated. We'd like to be a little further down the road on that issue as well. So how can we get there? And really starting to strategize about, what are some ways. Candice being the good record retention person that she was, unearthed the email that I had sent back to her 4 years ago, I guess not long after that call. And there were some suggestions about, and I said, you may not be ready right now, but if you're interested in being a voice and helping to inform policies or practices, I think there would be some opportunities, especially being involved in the system of care framework, that I felt like there was some ways to do that. And so one of the things was putting her in touch with another parent in her community that I knew that there's strength in numbers, and I think you just heard that, from the Children's Partnership. And then looking at here's a particular report that if you want to review that and give input, here's a number to an advocacy group that I know has an eye for children's mental health, that, may have been a good match. There's an opportunity to testify. There's public testimony that we have in this particular council meeting, and that council meeting is coming up on this date. So it was just kind of throwing out, different strategies, and to see if any of those, matched up to an interest, for Candice.
one of the things that we miss, and I do want to, is the commitment that we both had, and I say missed on our things we wanted to really, touch on that was a big part of that relationship that made it work at the beginning for you to be able to give me opportunities where there were opportunities, and for me to be willing to understand that sometimes those opportunities may not pan out, but I had to remain committed to continuing to follow up with you, continuing that communication. It was interesting seeing that email, but there's been so many emails since. We've continued to stay in contact, and through the last 4 years since that first email, I've become much more involved, and I moved to Central Texas for that purpose. I really saw more and more opportunity, and the more I communicated with Sherry and with other colleagues and leaders that I met through that journey that I've met, I've become I'm now the parent representative and vice chair of the Texas System of Care Consortium. In that role, I'm representing the families of Texas for mental health policy improvements, and that I take that very, very seriously and very passionately and very authentically. In addition to that, I advise on another advisory board for trauma-informed care. And then in a little while we'll talk about our a network that we've developed, that we've been growing, of family leaders in the state. So, there's been a wonderful journey in this, and there's so much more that we can do. One of the things that in this journey, I've learned so much. I've learned so much from you, Sherry. I've learned so much from my other family leaders in the state, colleagues that I now call friends. And, when I called you, there wasn't the parent liaisons that we heard about earlier in my community, but you knew that was a resource, and you connected me with someone, near me that you thought could help. And through all of that and that whole journey, I was able to speak intelligently about important issues and testify during this session that's still going on right now on some important bills for children's mental health policy. So, and that journey continues, but I really thank you.
Well, and I would say conversely that I feel like I've learned a lot from you, and she has plugged into so many other people, and we could say, oh, we walk hand in hand and we're harmonious, but we still hit snags where I'm like, well, that was hard to hear, or so that's what relationships, sincere, authentic relationships, are about, is providing that feedback and being supportive of each other and having that mutual gain of learning where the other person's coming from, and trying to build policies and practices that match up, because isn't that really what we want? The bottom line is improving the lives of children, youth, and their families in this work that we're doing. So I think it's been a symbiotic, relationship. And with that, anything else? We'll turn it back to Barbara.
Thanks, Candice and Sherry. I really appreciate you sharing your insights with us, and just more of that journey and how a family leader is born. Our third family member has had quite a journey, and I'm very excited that she's able to share with us today. Her journey has taken her to actually a national level, and now she's back home with us in Texas, and so we just benefit from the insights that she has gained from that journey. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Bryan and let her share with you some more of a family journey.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Bryan, and I bring a little bit of a different perspective, but you will hear a lot of similarities between what I'm going to share with you and what has been said previously today. I will let you know that I started my journey when my 3 children were removed from my home. The Texas Department of Child Protective Services received an emergency order from a judge, and all 3 of my kiddos were removed from my home, and they were placed in the child welfare system. They were wards of the state, and it took me a while to get it together, and I needed to get my kids back. And I think that's where my favorite saying that I shared with Barbara, and you'll see on the slide there, that you got to take the fire in your belly. You take the fire in your belly and you use it purposefully. I don't know if any of y'all have ever experienced the removal of a child, your own child, from your home, but that it's like poking the bear. And this mama bear was upset. And I will disclose to you that I have not always been the mild-mannered reporter from the Daily Planet that you're seeing here today. I have been one mad mom. And through that, I learned, and part of my journey around becoming a leader, it took some learning. It took some learning on my part. It took some shifting. I had to shift my values. I had to shift my way of thinking. I had to shift the way I behaved, the way I spoke, in order to get things done. Through that, my journey, of course, I started my journey as a mom and then went on to be a parent liaison with the Children's Partnership. Went on to be the lead family member for a Systems of Care initiative that was the first one here in the state of Texas. And after that, I went on to Washington, D.C., where I served as a training and technical assistance coordinator for Systems of Care communities across the states. So it's been quite a journey. I am really glad to be home. I've been back working here in Austin for about 7.5 years, and there's no place like home. I'm really enjoying it. But I do want to share with you some of the words of advice, some of my own learnings, what I have learned and what I have found to be very helpful. And my journey as a family member and my journey as a leader within this initiative, within the family movement that I'm going to be calling it. I needed to gain the knowledge and the skills to serve as an agent of change. And when I say that, I mean I had to gain the knowledge and the skills to be my own change agent. I knew that I needed to change. I knew that standing in the position I was in, with the state being in control, having my children in their custody, there were things I needed to change in order to gain custody of my children. So with that, I had to know the content, I had to know the laws, I had to know the rules, I had to know what I was speaking about. And it struck me when Sonia was speaking earlier, because she talked a little bit about that shift, and she talked about and articulated wonderfully what it took for an agency leader to be able to embrace this new way of doing business. And this is, and was at the time, a very new way of doing business. I heard particularly with Candice and Sherry, they talked about really good communication, about being transparent, about establishing credibility. These are things that will be invaluable on your journey as a change agent. Both Monica and Vina and Candice and Sherry both talked about building the trust and developing relationships. To me, that is one of the keys. I mean, if you can't trust and if you can't have really good relationship and communication, it's really, really challenging. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face, not only as family members, but as agency leaders. It's really hard to develop that relationship and to build it on trust. One of the biggest things I learned, I always heard about, well, if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, which meant for me, if I'm going to talk about being passionate, if I'm going to talk about this fire in my belly, this is like a life change. I not only do it when I'm talking about myself and my children and the reunification and the changes that were made at the state level and then at the national level that I experienced. If I was going to talk this way, I needed to walk this way. And that meant changing my lifestyle, changing the way that I communicated not only with leaders within agencies, but communication within myself and with my children. communication within myself and with my family. I had to be the change I wanted to see. And I had to do it internally and, like I say, walk that walk. One of the best things I think I ever learned, and y'all might hear this once in a while, you hear somebody say, surround yourself with smart people. Well, let me tell you what, there's a whole lot to be said about that, because that you bring out the best in others. And it's kind of like, God, I don't want to call it a pyramid game because those are supposed to be okay. But, you know, when you build on the best of others, it builds, and it builds the relationship, and it builds the trust, but you're bringing other people into the mix. You're not working in isolation, trying to be the only change agent. It just doesn't work. One of the other things is to recognize your capacity. And I heard this a lot in what Candice and Sherry were talking about, that if you don't like the way the world is, you change it. You have an obligation to change it. You just do it one step at a time. This quote is by Marian Wright Edelman, who I absolutely adore. I've met in person and is just an incredible woman. But Candice, to me, Candice lives this life. She didn't like the way the world was. She saw an opportunity and felt an obligation to change it, and she is. And that is one of the strongest things that I can say about a really good leader, is that you don't accept the norm. That this is about change. This is about being agents of change, and you have a responsibility and an obligation, because we do have children within these systems that we all need to change and work together. I thought about Sherry when they were talking about, you know, Candice was pretty tough move for her to pick up the phone and call somebody at Health and Human Services at the state level. Wow, that was, ooh. But anyway, with Sherry listened, and it wasn't like, oh, well, okay, let me give you a number, you need to call so-and-so. She took responsibility, she took the time, and she was within an organization where she was an identified leader, but she wasn't too good to not take the time and to take the little bit of time it took to help develop a relationship, to help build trust. Because Candice said, and don't forget, she called and called and called. She, you know, pounded her fist and stomped her feet and said, I'm mad as Eddie and I'm not going to take it anymore. But there was somebody who finally listened, who had that skill, who had that change in the way they were doing business, and took the time and listened to what it was that Candice said. There are some strategies that you need to develop to sustain yourself as a leader. You're going to run into chaotic, difficult, and challenging environments. You know, I'm sure many of you have flown, and when you get on the plane, the lady always says, or the guy, whoever says, you know what, if the plane goes down, you know, here's your exits, put on the mask, put it on yourself first, and then help those around you. And that reason is because you got to take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you're not going to be any good to anybody else. So you have to find that balance. You have to find the structure within yourself and within whatever it is that you're going to be leading. I have learned that you need to have the shared leadership structure that was mentioned previously. And shared leadership lessens the burden that any one person has to bear. If in the event there was something going on at the state level, systems of care, Texas Family Voice, we all are certain and know that if Barbara or if Sherry was out, you know, we could go on. We really could. We can continue to have a meeting. It's not like, oh, God, you know, our leaders aren't here, we can't continue to meet. So it's really, really important. It helps maintain continuity and the momentum in the event that leaders are unavailable. You keep that momentum going. It encourages balance and ensures that it's more likely that multiple views will be considered. You're not the one at the hierarchy saying, no, this is the way it's going to be. You share that leadership. You share that responsibility, which is really cool. But you got to know your limits. You got to take care of yourself. I've been taught that you have to do two things that are really important. That you got to get on the balcony. And by that I mean you step off of this chaotic dance floor. and you stand on the balcony and you really look about what's going on. And that gives you an opportunity to look and to listen and to think and to process. And the other thing is the sanctuary. Find a place where you can go. I heard Glenn say earlier, I'm going to find a quiet place. Yeah, and I know that sometimes that's really difficult, but try to take really good care of yourself, and be kind to yourself. I'm just going to touch on one more thing, or two, really, I'm sorry, but you got to make a commitment to your leadership role. There are many different leadership styles, but in order to be an agent of change, you have to have some consistency in the way that you are presenting yourself as a change agent and as a leader. I've committed myself to what is called the 4 agreements, and I'm going to share them with you quickly. Is to be impeccable with your word. You speak with integrity and say only what you mean. And avoid using the word to speak against yourself. Well, we are our own worst enemies, our family members. Oh, we hear, God, I'm so stupid, and if I only know this. Don't do that. Believe me, everybody else is saying that about you. Don't say it about you. Just kidding. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love, and be a positive role model for those who are watching you, whether it be your children, whether it be your colleagues, whether it be other family members coming up through the change agent pool. The second thing that I have, it has been one of the toughest things for me to do is to not take things personally. I have finally learned that nothing others do is because of me. That what others say and do is a projection of their own reality. It really is. I mean, think about it. When you become immune to the opinions and the actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. You know who you are, you have that confidence, you have the skills, and you have that fire in your belly to move it forward. So don't take what anybody says personally. And then don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. How many times have we thought, oh, well, she just must not like me because she didn't email me and tell me that there was going to be a meeting. Assume goodwill. When I say don't make assumptions, but I'm telling you to assume goodwill, oh, guys, drama goes away. Because it's not about you, okay? It's really not. And then always do your best. Things are going to change. Today, my best is what I'm doing today. Tomorrow, I may not be as well as I am today. Things might have happened tonight at my home, and tomorrow, I'm going to do the very best I can, but it will be different than what it was today. And that's okay. One more thing I want to talk about, and just state this, is that never underestimate the potential of your own influence. Because you do have a voice and a choice. You do have the right, and you do have the obligation to make changes, not only within your life, but changes for everyone of whom these systems and communities will affect. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you, Stephanie. I really appreciate you giving us those insights, those words of wisdom that we can take as family leaders. I think it's really important to definitely not underestimate who we are as a person and what we have to offer. And so if you are a community leader and you're listening to these stories of their journeys, take into consideration the families that you have in your community, and they all have something to offer. It's just asking them, and then actually having them be willing to giving them the confidence that they need to realize that they have something to share. So I do want to have a couple of brief words. We have one more polling question. And that polling question is, how do organizations within your community currently utilize families? So take a few minutes, answer that question, and then we'll report back to you the results.
They can choose all.
Oh, yes. And this is the one that you can choose all that will apply to you. So there'll be multiple answers.
Family partner and parent liaison was the most utilized. With 10 votes for that, and that's 76.9%. Also highly utilized is service evaluation and satisfaction surveys and boards and committees.
Thank you guys for answering those questions. I think it really that within the state, there has been a priority to have parents at the local LMHAs and within system of care communities that actually provide services for other families and mentor with them. So I do want to talk about a couple of opportunities that you can share with families within your community. And one is the Texas Family Voice Network. One of the things that we realized as we were putting a strategic plan together for the state was that there was a real gap in the recognizing a family voice, a unified family voice within the state. So over the last year or so, we have pulled together community leaders from across the state who have met and actually been able to offer their voice to several focus groups and to actually impact some of the legislation that is currently before our legislature right now. So I want to share, I want to ask the leaders that are here today really why they think it's important to be a part of a unified family voice such as Texas Family Voice Network. Vina?
Well, this is one reason because we get to always challenge ourselves to do new things, and to regain that fire in the belly. Thank you, Stephanie. And to be a part of continued change and to re-establish our family voice in different levels and continue to step up.
Thanks, Vina. Candice?
One of the roles that I've taken as a family leader is also a leader in understanding trauma-informed transformation throughout these systems. And a big part of that is beginning to understand that there is a control and power structure within relationships, within the clinical relationship and within the administrative and policy and program relationships at your community mental health center level, at the state level, and even at the national level. And beginning to understand that shifting that power structure, leveling it out a little bit, creates trust, creates safety. That can create that same, those same things within the administrative levels, and it allows for much greater sharing of authentic information, I think, and authentic change. I personally believe that engaging family leaders in all aspects, from grant writing all the way down to evidence-based practice implementation and providing those services, engaging families at all of those levels is a key to sustainability, because we're not going anywhere.
That's right. When other people leave, families will always be here. So that's one of the things that we need to remember. Stephanie, do you want to add anything else about your involvement with the Texas Family Voice Network?
You know, there is strength in numbers. None of us can do this by ourselves, but when we come together, and the environment that we come together in is at a place of mutual respect and mutual trust, I encourage you, please consider joining the Texas Family Voice Network, because it really is an opportunity to know, number one, that you're not alone, that you're not the only one out there that are facing these challenges, and it's a great group of people that come together to do make change. And it is our obligation because of our children.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate those words of encouragement. And just want to let you know that as the state lead contact, that you can go on the Texas System of Care website under the team membership. And if you don't have my email address already, and if you're interested in in getting involved with the Texas Family Voice Network, we would love to hear from you. We have a listserv that will be starting, and lots of exciting information will be coming your way. The other thing that I really want to briefly talk about is the Leadership Academy that is happening June the 11th in San Marcos. It's a one-day training that will help family potential emerging leaders or family leaders already to really strengthen their skills and to help them to know how to recognize opportunities that may come their way within their community. So I want to encourage you, again, if you're interested in being a part of that Leadership Academy, to contact me, or you can, on the website, the Texas System of Care website, there is a Leadership Academy place that you can go, and the Evite is in there. So I really appreciate that, any involvement that you would like to do. So I just want to thank everybody for being here today, and I really want to thank the presenters. Hopefully you as community leaders and interested parties have gained a little more insight into families are real, and we all have different journeys, but we all can come together for one common purpose, and that is to strengthen children's mental health. So with that, I thank you for being here, and if you remember that this will be archived, and if you want to share this with some of your potential family members or other people in your community, feel free to do that. Are there any questions? Sorry.
Please type them into the
Okay,
chat.
if you have some questions, type them into the chat box, and they will assist me in helping to guide the different questions to the appropriate person.
I would also encourage participants to this webinar today to share this with the leaders and administrators in their community mental health centers as well, and start that conversation. There's a shared leadership between us, and there's also the shared leadership that we share with those state and community leaders.
And most of the comments are that the webinar has been very helpful, and thanking the presenters.
Christiana, you had asked about the results of that first poll. I pulled those up on the screen for you. And you're getting thank yous.
Okay. If you guys have any questions after the fact, please feel free to contact me or just the info line at texassystemofcare.org, and we'll be glad to field any of those questions, and just if there's anything that I can do personally to help you in your community to build your family voice, again, feel free to reach out, and we'll work as hard as we can with you to develop that shared leadership. There is a post survey that Robert mentioned at the very beginning, and so please fill that out and let us know, again, how we can help you.